Welcome back to my channel. This is Coach DC from All 22 Films. This is a follow-up film study on Devin White. I'm going to focus this on their Week 9 overtime loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars, a game in which Devin White had 16 tackles, gave up 6 catches for only 28 yards. I like to look at the advanced stats that are on Pro Football Reference. I don't necessarily find them completely reliable in my opinion. I didn't see 7 targets of Devin White here. Saw maybe 5 times where he was the closest defender. There's some good film in here and some bad to talk about. Again, this is Week 9, overtime loss against the Jags. A defensive struggle in the first half, to be honest with you. First of all, he shows some really nice patience on zone drops. Motion left to right or bottom of our screen to the top by the running back, and the Raiders are going to respond by rotating the safeties. So one safety is going to drop down into the flats. He'll actually make the tackle. The nickel DB, Jeremy Chin, is going to blitz off the edge. The backside safety is going to roll to center field. There's nothing special here from a Devin White standpoint. He just does a nice job generally in zone of having awareness of the route and what he should cover. I do think he oversteps a little bit sometimes when he's going to make tackles or sometimes even in man coverage. This is a zone concept. I'll run this back so you can see the rotations and where he covers. We're talking about those 3 safeties there, basically separated by 12 or 13 yards apiece. How they respond to this motion by the running back to the field. And then what Devin White does as a result. They're playing zone. There's a stop route, snag, curl, whatever you want to call it, illustrated by the yellow line. And then got kind of a corner route, post corner, illustrated in orange that goes a little bit deeper. Devin White does a nice job consistently, in my opinion, of sitting inside leverage of the number 2 receiver or number 3 if it's trips. In this case, it's not his job to go get the running back. The ball's already out here from Lawrence. Pretty much knew where he was going with it, in my opinion. I'm just trying to convince you that even though the coverage stats, the metrics, the advanced stats, whatever, are poor for Devin White as far as what he allows targets to catches, a lot of the film shows up. It doesn't look irregular to me compared to other NFL inside linebackers that are starting caliber. In fact, this is a weird game, to be honest with you. It's 6-0 late in the second quarter, and then the Jags kicker hits the 68-yarder that we all saw, which cuts it to 6-3. And then the two offenses, I should say, combined to score on 7 of 8 possessions in the second half. Get to overtime, and the Jags win 30-29. They went Jacksonville's offense, field goal, touchdown, field goal in the second half. Some of these plays he's not targeted, to be honest with you. I'm trying to give you an idea or an opportunity to look at his awareness and how he responds in different coverages. That was zone. This is going to be man. It's a 2nd and 18. It'll be a completed pass to the X receiver down here to the bottom side. I think it's De'Ami Brown against what was the rookie Darian Porter. Devin White is in man. He's not targeted, number 1. Number 2, the tight end who he's responsible for is going to chip first and then release out into the flat. So obviously that helps Devin White from a coverage standpoint. He does have a couple of things to navigate. The potential for a pick route by the receiver right there, the slot, Parker Washington, number 1. Number 2, I like the fact that he stays on top. He creates space between him and tight ends or running backs if and when they do chip. And they tip, other teams' offenses chip just about as often as opponents or foes of the Detroit Lions do, right? They got a similar type player. Max Crosby, they chip him a ton, similar to the way that teams handle or try to deal with Aiden Hutchinson. So here's the routes that you get. Deep comeback at the bottom, illustrated by the yellow line there for De'Ami Brown. And you see this at least 3 times in this game film. I'll show it to you twice in this video, whereby Devin White is responsible for someone man. And even at the NFL level, sometimes you'll get guys who, when they see these chips, they will step forward and close space. There's no reason to do that. There's 2 good reasons not to, I should say. Try to help out by being in a passing lane ever so briefly, I should say, to help out a teammate who's also in man coverage. In this case, it's Jeremy Chin on Parker Washington. He does have to navigate or go under that potential screen or pick by Parker Washington there. And that's why it's a good thing that he had created space. He gives himself the option to go over the top or go underneath. Again, he's not targeted here, But on back-to-back plays, or at least back-to-back plays that I chose to show you, you've got different coverages. Zone on the first one, man here, not targeted in either. Essentially, the explanation that I'm offering you, or the comparison, is he looks like a typical NFL inside linebacker in coverage to me. I don't see irregular or inconsistent responses as far as his awareness and the leverage that he plays with. This is a very weird drive at the beginning of the game. 17 plays for Jacksonville. Unfortunately for the Jags, they don't score. 2nd and 10 later in that drive. This is run defense. This one looked really bad to me on first glance. He's spot shadowed here in red. Sometimes the second or third time you look at things, you are able to notice aspects or elements of the play that you did not first. This is a trap concept. So the right guard is going to pull, and he's going to kick out the defensive tackle located at the bottom side of our screen. From a Raiders perspective, I kind of can't believe I get to talk about trap. It's a wonderful concept, really underutilized in college and the NFL. First of all, it's a missed tackle from Max Crosby. The right tackle that Crosby's lined up over gets a free release. Crosby and a lot of NFL defensive edge defenders are not trying to actively get hands on the tackle. So the tackle here gets a free release right up into Devin White's face. Because it is a trap concept, White is pulled to the bottom side of the screen. I will give you the end zone angle. So what I'm talking about is this guard pulling will force or elicit a step to the bottom side of our screen, the right-hand side of the Raiders defense, by Devin White, because he gets a pull read. And then once he sees the nose work over the top of this back block by the center, White actually tries to jump back to this side. It's wrong. There's no way for him to make this play in either direction. You'll get the end zone angle, and you'll be able to confirm for yourself if you want. Look, there's other problems. Crosby's unblocked. He does have jet motion at him. Misses the tackle. All right, the right tackle gets up to Devin White's face immediately. But what I'm talking to you about is the way that this defensive tackle gets over the top of the center's back block, which is illustrated here by this blue line. The center's back block is designed to hold that defensive tackle. The trap concept would get this running back through here. And because of the pulling guard, the right guard that is, Devin White steps in that direction, the left-hand side of our screen, and then he sees the nose work over the top. Devin White sees this. He sees the nose work over the top, and so he's like, okay, I'm going to try to jump back to the other side. And so it looks really bad because he's getting locked up. There's a lot more going on here than just that. Like I said, nose worked over the top, Crosby with a missed tackle. We can run down or criticize Devin White for the way that he played this if we want to, but what we can't say he doesn't show A, awareness of the read, the pull by the right guard, and B, recognition, great vision of the nose tackle working over the top. So we're going to cancel gaps. We're not going to try to be in the same gap. We're going to try to play off of that. Unfortunately for Devin White, the right tackle's already in his face. So it looks bad, not as bad upon review, or at least the analysis that my brain could come up with. I think he's got good eyes to track the running backs and navigating blockers. He doesn't make the right choice here, but I don't know that there really is one, to be honest with you. Another run concept here, still on that same drive. This is a 2nd and 5. He'll disrupt the play in the backfield, but this is a missed tackle. I don't think his feet settle enough to allow his pad level to lower or get down. And he ends up kind of grabby here. So to me, the problem is feet first and then pad level second, but those two things are related. Chin on the backside, illustrated by that yellow line, will get involved with the tackle as well. And then I think it's Max Crosby finishes things off. 52, the backside inside linebacker, the Mikey Landon Roberts, ends up folding really far over the top here. But he's getting an offensive lineman working up to him directly. That's going to help expand 52. And so thankfully you've got pursuit. Thankfully from a Raiders perspective, you've got pursuit on the backside from Chin. And then in addition, great pursuit as always from Max Crosby. White with a missed tackle. I think it reflects pretty poorly that he can't get his feet settled enough that he can lower his pad level and actually explode into this tackle, and just basically ends up grabbing as a result. One thing to note about this first drive, like I said, 17 plays, 10 minutes. In fact, is that Devin White, like every other game this year, he's on the field 100% of the time. Looks extremely durable at 250, 255 pounds. 4th and 1, the Jags have 6 offensive linemen on the field, a jumbo set. They do convert this. I still think it's a pretty good read by Devin White. I think you've got some type of breakdown here by Max Crosby. I'll show you what I mean. They're trying to run a stunt, they being the Raiders, to this 3-man surface, meaning guard, tackle, and then tight end / tackle. I'm presuming that he is eligible here. In any case, quarterback is going to reverse pivot. There's Devin White with a nameplate above his head. And here's what I mean. Max Crosby is responsible for B gap. You can see, or C gap, excuse me, in between number 70 and number 72. You can see he's actually pretty much lined up there. And then this defensive tackle is going to stunt or be responsible for stunting into the A gap. It's going to allow White to fit over the top of that nose tackle, almost kind of a natural gap exchange. He is unblocked, he being Devin White. You can see Crosby doesn't get in here. Elandon Roberts has looped around. No chance for them to stop the play. Still great effort by Elandon Roberts. He's always been a really good run defender, if you ask me, ever since his time in Pittsburgh. I like the read by Devin White, the real subtle, quick ability to reduce his surface contact area for the offensive lineman. I'm talking about his right shoulder here, dipping underneath real quick, and then returning back to square to make a hit on the running back. I think he's pretty good in constricted space versus the run. A little bit more physical than I presumed, and I said that in the first video that I put out on Sunday night. If you guys haven't checked it out, it was pretty lengthy. A look at Devin White over the course of 2 different games. Another zone pass play here. I think this is what Devin White does really well, which is get depth on his drop. That ends up being a quarter half, or what a lot of people refer to as a cover 6. He'll make a really strong, quick tackle downhill. It's off play action. We're into the second quarter here, obviously. So quarter half, you're going to have one corner play the flats, and the other corner, 22, is going to get depth. And he ends up basically splitting the field here. There's your 1/4 and 1/4, or quarter, and then your half field defender, right, adding up to 100%, 25 plus 25 plus 50. As far as Devin White goes, does a really nice job of getting depth and then capping his drop. Sometimes you get guys that'll drift a little bit further. One linebacker drifts further than the other, and it can create a lane for the quarterback to throw to. I think he's got really good play recognition. You can see the 2 high safety structure. The conflict here is underneath. You've got the tight end sitting down between the top of the numbers and the hash. In addition, you've got this route working in behind the inside linebacker level. So conceptually, if Devin White checks up to take that tight end too soon, perhaps, or it's possible that deeper route, there's a lane for Trevor Lawrence to fit that football in. If he stays too deep and takes away this one, then the route is easily completed to the tight end for a pretty big gain, 6 or 8 yards. In this case, Devin White's able to get downhill, hold the guy to, I think, 4 or 5 yards. I think he does this really well. Get to his ceiling or cap in his pass drop, key or eye the quarterback, and then respond downhill as soon as the quarterback's hands break, and he pulls the pin on the grenade to toss it. What will be most interesting to me as the 2026 season starts and then progresses is 3rd and 6. Devin White, to me, pretty obviously will be on the field on a lot of 1st and 10s. 3rd and 6, they'll have a decision to make. If they had Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph available with all the other DBs that they've brought in or now have and trust, then they could navigate to some more dime personnel usages. Without Kirby Joseph, without Brian Branch, I think that's out the window. Who is on the field on 3rd and 6? If you've got more Hutchinson and perhaps a Wanham along with a defensive tackle in Alim McNeil on the field on 3rd and 6 to rush the passer, then you need a will linebacker on the field like a Devin White. There's other configurations that could be used where Derek Barnes is an edge defender into the boundary and he could potentially drop out, basically teaming or tagging White and Barnes on the same side. I'm not sure that that's the plan, to be honest with you, as far as putting Barnes out there at edge defender. I know he got hurt earlier in practice today. This is a really nice throw from Trevor Lawrence. It's a Tampa 2. And I said this in the first video. I think teams had a pretty good idea when the Raiders were going to run a Tampa 2 because it got shredded. This is a 2-by-2 formation. So we're talking about 2 receivers to the bottom side of the screen and 2 receivers to the top. The difference is the 2 guys at the top of our screen are actual wide receivers. One to the bottom is a tight end. Now that'll actually be where the ball is completed, where the ball is thrown. The passing strength is declared to the top. It's a mirrored concept. The 2 slots are essentially running seam verticals. Devin White is responsible for the middle portion in a Tampa 2. Again, I've said this in the first video, a little bit of a misnomer. Tampa 2 is a 2-deep coverage, but you have a 3rd player responsible for the deep middle. Devin White is reading, in my opinion, the width of Parker Washington's route. We're talking about this route here that kind of bends back in. And so as a result, he levels off because he doesn't perceive a vertical threat to the passing strength where he opened up. Unfortunately for him, Trevor Lawrence trusts this tight end, rightfully so. This is roughly the area in the middle of the field that Devin White would be responsible for. We're talking about between the hashes, deeper than his drop right now, 14 to 20 yards depth, somewhere in that range. Parker Washington is actually just running at that safety on the top side of the field. We're talking about this safety up here. Parker Washington is just occupying him, and now they've run the tight end directly onto this area. It's a quick throw by Trevor Lawrence. Do I think Devin White could get a little bit more depth? Yes, I do. However, therein lies the rub with a Tampa 2. If you watch the first video that I put out about Devin White, you saw a lot of reps where the Mike backer in a Tampa 2 was getting this type of depth where Devin White is at here, and short passes were completed in these areas because the Mike linebacker was not available to help out underneath. And if you recall, there would be 2 options for the quarterback, one to the inside of Devin White, one to the outside. I'm basically talking as if Devin White is this defender here. My apologies, I didn't explain that first. So the weakness in a Tampa 2 is if you get requisite depth sometimes, it opens up underneath throws, right? Perhaps you're in a situation by playing a Tampa 2 that you're willing to allow one of those. I think Devin White could get a little bit more depth here and let those guys underneath play quicker underneath or shorter routes, in my opinion. It really didn't end up mattering because that completion got ruined. There was a hold on the Jags left guard. I think it was Patrick McCarry, a former Raven. Devin White spot shadowed here as a will linebacker, moving down into the boundary to match or respond to the running back being set up. They're quite obviously going to chip Max Crosby, who's lined up here as the edge defender, into the boundary. This is a quick tackle when he's playing man. This is going to be cover 3 buzz or insert, as some people refer to it. So what we're talking about is that the field side corner is going to get depth. That's Darian Porter. The far side safety from us is going to rotate to center field-ish. He's not going to perfectly get there. And then the boundary side safety is going to drop down and sit on the hash. I'll map this out or draw it a little bit so you guys can see what I'm talking about. I think these 3 defenders here that are encompassed by the zoned off areas, I think they're playing zone, cover 3 zone. This is the safety that dropped down, and you've got a man coverage to the boundary by the outside corner and Devin White. Again, this is similar to the tight end route that I showed you earlier. Devin White recognizes the chip on Crosby, and he knows, okay, there's no threat for me right now. I can get depth. Sometimes that opens you up for a screen. That's not what the Jags are going for here. He gets depth to possibly help out with that type of route there. He didn't see or have any awareness of the route. He's just taught to get depth. I think it's a smart strategy. And as a result, Trevor Lawrence doesn't want to try to get the ball into the middle of the field here. Perhaps he's unsure about the coverage and then checks the ball down to the running back. Quick tackle by Devin White. I think this is what he's really good at from a coverage standpoint. One of 2 things he's really good at, Zone drops, staying patient, and eyeing the quarterback, for better or for worse. Some people have different perspectives on how long or how often you should look at the quarterback without any awareness of the routes whatsoever. I would say that Devin White does a pretty good job of keying or eyeing the quarterback in the zone situations. This wasn't zone. This was man. But he got width intentionally because he read or reacted to the chip route by the running back. And I think that's a good thing. He's responsible for the running back into the boundary from a man standpoint, a very similar reaction, if you ask me, to how he played the tight end earlier on the 2nd and 18 that I showed you on the Jacksonville Jaguars' first drive. I'm not really making any grand statements here. One more play, showing you the film, trying to evaluate it as best as I understand it and am capable, and then let you decide. I think he's a good fit, to be honest with you, for Detroit's structure and their roster. One more play here, another opportunity to talk about his reactions from a zone standpoint. The Jags are going to tie the game here early in the third quarter, and then thereafter they just rocked the Raiders' defense. Like I said, field goal, touchdown, field goal in the second half. As far as White goes from a zone standpoint, I've covered it already. I think he's very aware and intelligent. I drew up 2 of these routes that are going to threaten to his side. It's a dime configuration for the Raiders. They've got 4 down linemen to potentially rush the passer. Mike, the linebacker, and Devin White. Jeremy Chin, hybrid safety, nickel-type defender. This case, he's lined up as the dime backer into the boundary. I think Devin White disrupts Trevor Lawrence's throw where he intends to throw here. So we're talking about the 2 routes that I drew up here, and then in addition, there's a third route that ends up also being a delayed in-cut by number 5, the point man, in what essentially is becoming a bunch after the motion. Look at Devin White's eyes. He is, in fact, getting awareness of the receivers to see if they're cut underneath. They are not. Now he gets his eyes back to the quarterback. I'm going to do this a lot in 2026. Talk about the all-22 angle and then switch to the end zone angle strategically to talk about where the quarterback was looking. I don't notice huge fundamental flaws or gaps in the way that Devin White plays pass coverage. So my explanation, I think I put this in one of my comments to someone, my explanation as far as how low he's rated as a pass coverage defender is I don't have one, because he doesn't look that different to me compared to a whole lot of inside linebackers from a coverage standpoint. To use a comparison point, I think he's better than Derek Barnes in his responses in zone, at least from what I remember of Barnes playing the inside linebacker position. Like I said, I'm going to do this a lot in 2026. Talk about where the quarterback is looking. So here he's quite obviously looking to his left. Well, what was over there? Devin White dropping with inside leverage on Parker Washington's route. No, I don't think he's going to have a whole bunch of interceptions or passes defense necessarily. So maybe not make splash plays in coverage. Sound zone responsibility defender from a leverage standpoint. Doesn't do a great job, in my opinion, settling his feet and keeping his pad level low at times in open field tackling situations. You saw at least one of them here, the toss play down into the boundary earlier in the same game. I think I'm now on to the 5th game that I've watched from a Devin White perspective. And I just don't see deficient skills or reactions or playing with poor leverage, especially when he's in zone. But I've got some film, I showed you 2 of them, where running backs or tight ends are chipping an edge defender, and he gets requisite depth or creates space. And that's intentional. It's to play from a team defense standpoint. I wanted to focus on the coverage here, find any issues and express or try to relate them to you here. You're more than welcome to have a different interpretation of some of these plays than I do. He's fortunate to have played with a guy like Max Crosby, right? So when he was asked to play man on a running back or a tight end, they were all oftentimes chipping Crosby. The same thing happens in Detroit, right? With Aiden Hutchinson. That's a point that I want to emphasize. He's got awareness there to get depth. Alex Anzalone, a really good man defender from a straight coverage standpoint, would oftentimes step up and not create that type of space and play with that kind of team defense personality. I wonder if we're going to see Hutchinson into the boundary and Devin White into the boundary on some of these pass plays. If White's going to be out there on 3rd and 6, essentially give him the assignment to play man on a running back or a tight end into the boundary, and presumably those guys would possibly be chipping Aiden Hutchinson to help out. That fits with one of the coverage snaps that we saw here in this film study video, which is the cover 3 zone to the field and the man to the boundary, where Devin White ended up making the tackle for a 1-yard gain into the boundary on the running back who had chipped Aiden Hutchinson. As an aside, I don't consider those to be split field coverages. Even though the coverage is technically split about the middle of the field or somewhere near the hash, meaning you've got zone to one side and man to the other, for me, split field refers to different reads and reactions on one side and the manner in which the routes are matched versus the opposite side of the field. Man to the boundary and zone to the field, for me, is not a classical split field technique. It's just a declared coverage, man to one side, zone to the other. I'm referring to like palms, stubby, other coverage calls that ask defenders to match routes depending on what's being run. With one call on one side of the field, palms, and stubby, or even though those two may not be matched up together, something called to the other side of the field that's separate and completely distinct. I think White looks good in zone. He's got a conservative style there, if you ask me, of getting to his drops and isn't really oftentimes reading the routes that much, talking about in zone. I think it's important that the Lions picked up a guy who looks like he can play on 1st and 10 at the inside linebacker position, specifically Will, but also 3rd and 6. Helps out a whole lot, in my opinion, creating versatility as far as the players that Kelvin Shepherd can get on the field as a package or a group together. If you guys enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comment section, number 1. If you think other Lions fans would enjoy it, please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach. Appreciate you guys' time.